Welcome to Paranormal or Reality. On today's video, we explore abandoned houses. Make sure to like and subscribe. Let's begin. One of my favorite hobbies is photography. One day, while visiting Virginia for a job I was working at the time, my friend and I decided to look for some abandoned places to take photographs of since Halloween was just around the corner. After driving around and doing some quick phone research, we found a 1950s-era abandoned insane asylum. We couldn't find a way in. All the entrances were locked, boarded up, and guarded by cameras. Finally, we found an old busted window that led to what was once the kitchen. After some quick thinking, we grabbed an old chair and hopped in. The place was super dark, wet, and cold, and as soon as I set foot inside, I got chills down my spine, as if someone, or something, was watching me. My friend, who was a lot less shaken, wanted to look around. I started snapping pictures of broken furniture and overturned objects. My friend walked down a hallway with the words, "Don't enter," written on the wall. I didn't follow. Between feeling spooked and focusing on my photography, I just wasn't ready to take that step yet. Not even 30 seconds later, my friend came speeding back into the room, looking frightened but trying to keep himself calm. "All right, I've seen enough. Let's go." "Now," I asked, "what happened? Did you see something?" He didn't say a word, just walked past me and started climbing back out the window. I was standing close to the hallway, and I guess my natural curiosity kicked in. I leaned over and peeked down. At the end of the hallway, there was an empty chair. Something small was sitting in it. Looked like a ball or something. And then, right in front of my eyes, it slid off the chair and landed on the floor. I was totally freaked out. "Oh, hell no!" I screamed and ran for the window. My friend was already outside waiting, so I threw him my camera and leapfrogged out the window, cutting up my hands in the process. But I didn't even care. We ran to the car, jumped in, and sped away. It wasn't until a few minutes and a few miles later that we finally calmed down enough to talk about what had happened. I said, "Did you see that ball in the chair? When I looked down the hallway, I saw something sitting there, and then it fell to the floor." My friend looked at me with shock and disbelief in his eyes. "It wasn't a ball," he said. "I was walking down the hallway, peeking into the empty rooms. It was creepy seeing the flipped-over beds and stuff scattered everywhere. But when I got closer to the end of the hallway, I saw what looked like an empty chair. Except there was a small doll sitting there. I thought it was spooky, but I figured some crackhead probably put it there. And as soon as I thought that, the doll went from sitting upright to slumping over. So I ran out of there. I thought maybe I overreacted, maybe it was a breeze or something that knocked it over. But when you said it fell to the ground, I knew it couldn't have just been a breeze. That totally freaked me out. So, yeah, I know it doesn't sound that scary, but you had to be there. The combination of the cold, the chills, and how quiet and secluded it was made for the perfect conditions to be more scared than I've ever been before.
Make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any stories you would like to share with us, our email is in the description. Let's continue.
About 8 years ago, I lived in a town in the mountains that had a lot of vacant and abandoned houses. I had gone into two of them. The first one I went into honestly scared me. It was off a stone road with a few other houses scattered down the way. My boyfriend at the time and I drove there, even though it was less than a mile from where we lived. It had snowed a lot, and there was probably a good 8 inches of snow on that lot. The house was set back from the road and had a long driveway. The first weird thing was that there were appliances, stoves, washers, dryers, refrigerators, just lining the driveway on either side. The house itself was big and split level. When you go in through the front door, you can either go up a few steps to the main area or down a few steps to the bottom level. There were no steps to get into the front door, so we went to the side. The door was already kicked in, and snow was blowing inside. The house was completely gutted. We went in, and there were those really tall Jesus candles you can get from the dollar store lining the hallway on both sides. Had to be close to 100 in total. We went up the stairs to the front door, continued up the other steps, and stopped in front of a door a little to the right of the kitchen, which was at the top of the steps. There was heavy plastic, like layers of thick plastic, acting as a door, so we couldn't see into the room. We decided to check it out, so we pushed the plastic aside and stepped in. The room was small, and there was a small folding table set up in the middle with one chair, one plate on the table, one fork, one spoon, and one cup knocked over. The air in the room felt very heavy, as if whoever had been there last was extremely depressed, maybe even took their life there. But there were no signs of that. There was no other furniture in the room. There was a closet door that was slightly ajar, and we heard a noise come from behind it. Thinking it was an animal or something, we opened the door, but all that was inside was a black top hat on a hook, nothing else. I started to feel really anxious, and the heaviness of the air was getting to me. We walked out of the room through the heavy plastic, and I stopped at the top of the steps as my ex wanted to go down the hall. But I was getting too creeped out and told him to hurry up. He was maybe 10 steps down the hall when the plastic in the doorway suddenly flew open, and I felt a big, forceful rush of air go past me and down the steps. It almost knocked me over. My ex heard the plastic move, ran toward me, and pretty much picked me up. I'm not a skinny person. And we ran down the steps, out the door, and back to my car. It was terrifying. That plastic could not have moved on its own. The other house I was in wasn't scary at all. It was almost comforting. The small house had been vacant for a long time, and the roof was collapsing in. We went in through the front door, and it was as if whoever had lived there just left one day and never came back. I'm assuming it was an elderly person who had died, and no one had come to empty the house. Everything was still there. Medicine in the bathroom that had expired in 1994, dishes on a drying rack next to the sink, a wallet with an ID, dentures, just everything. It was sad. We checked out the home and found tons of cool stuff, especially an old World War I or World War II uniform, an old sewing machine, a record player with tons of records, and this old parchment paper book of records dating back to the 1890s with railroad information, costs of materials, and letters between family and friends about business transactions. It was super cool to see all that. We didn't take anything, but it was neat to feel like we had stepped back in time. I moved out of that area, and a couple of years ago, I drove by that house, but it's not there anymore.
Thanks for tuning in. Watch another video if you dare.